Jehovah's Witnesses tell you to protect your relationships while destroying the most important ones you have. The cognitive dissonance is stunning, and today I'm going to show you exactly how deep the hypocrisy goes. You ready? Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at this article from JW.org titled, "A World in Turmoil, Protect Your Relationships." As someone who was born into this religion and lived it from the inside, I want to break down the incredible disconnect between what they preach and what they practice when it comes to relationships. The article starts with a section called "Why It Matters," where it says, quote, "As anxiety over world turmoil increases, many people unwittingly allow their relationships to suffer." It then lists ways people damage relationships by isolating themselves from friends, spouses becoming contentious with each other, parents not paying enough attention to children's anxieties, and so on. Reading this as someone who's experienced JW policies firsthand feels like a sick joke. The organization that warns against isolating from friends is the same one that demands complete isolation from any member who leaves or is disfellowshipped. Let's get this straight. Jehovah's Witnesses have an institutional policy of shunning that literally forces family members to cut off all meaningful contact with loved ones. Parents are instructed to limit contact with their own disfellowshipped children to absolute necessities, and some won't even do that. Children are taught to shun their parents. Siblings are told not to speak to siblings. It's disgusting. The article has the nerve to quote Proverbs 17:17. "A true friend shows love at all times and is a brother who is born for times of distress." The irony is breathtaking. The organization uses this scripture while systematically forcing members to abandon friends and family at precisely their time of greatest distress, when they're questioning their faith or having been disfellowshipped. If a true friend shows love at all times, then why are Jehovah's Witnesses specifically instructed to stop showing love the moment someone is disfellowshipped or leaves? How is cutting someone off completely during their greatest spiritual or emotional crisis showing love at all times? It's not. Jesus himself illustrated true friendship in the parable of the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15. The father in the story didn't shun his son when he left. He watched for him daily, ran to him when he saw him in the distance, and embraced him. He didn't require a judicial committee, a period of proving himself, or a public announcement before welcoming him back. It was his son, and he was grateful to have him again. The article then advises married couples, quote, "Marriage mates should act as a pilot and a co-pilot with the same flight plan, not as two fighter jets on a collision course," end quote. Yet, what happens when one spouse begins questioning Watchtower teachings? The organization effectively puts them on a collision course by instructing the faithful mate to prioritize loyalty to the organization over the marriage bond. When I was in the religion, one of the valid reasons for separation was spiritual endangerment. In other words, you could leave if your spouse spoke out against the Watchtower or the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, they would never word that quite so directly, but that was the bottom line, and we all knew it. The article then says, quote, "Resolve that you will not take out your stress on each other. Patience and tolerance go a long way." But where's the patience and tolerance when one mate decides to leave the religion? I've seen countless marriages destroyed by the organization's directives that essentially force the believing mate to create an emotional divide in the household. The organization quotes Ecclesiastes 4:9 and 10, which says that two are better than one, for if one of them falls, the other can help his partner up. But if a witness falls by questioning doctrine or leaving the faith, their mate is instructed not to help them up spiritually, but to view them as a danger, to limit spiritual conversations, and in many cases, to create emotional distance. I met up with a former elder a while back who ultimately had to make the very difficult decision to leave his wife because the way she treated him after he left the religion was abysmal. He was disrespected and soft shunned in his own home by his own spouse. That's the inevitable consequence of the Watchtower's teaching regarding anyone who dares to lead. Now there's another section, maintain your friendships. This section begins by encouraging witnesses to strengthen others and reach out daily to friends. Okay, let's be clear about the organization's actual policy. Witnesses are forbidden from maintaining friendships with former members. The moment a friend is disfellowshipped or leaves, disassociates, they're instructed to cut them off completely. The article quotes Nicole saying, quote, "When you face a storm of adversity, friends are like a point of reference. They can nudge you in the right direction, even if it's just by reminding you of things that you already know." End quote. This is exactly what the organization prevents through its shunning policy. When someone faces the storm of adversity that comes with questioning one's entire belief system and potentially losing their entire social network, the organization ensures that they have no friends to serve as points of reference or to nudge them in the right direction. The organization's own publications explain that shunning is designed to make the disfellowship person so lonely that they return to the fold. This is emotional blackmail. It's manipulation, not friendship, and definitely not love. But perhaps the most disturbing section in this article is the one about parenting. It quotes James 1:19, which says, "Be quick to listen, slow to speak," and adds, quote, "Initially, your children may be reluctant to express their fears and concerns, but by patiently listening, you will help them to open up." End quote. The hypocrisy here is particularly painful. Witnesses are instructed not to listen to the concerns and doubts of children who question the faith. When a young person expresses genuine questions or doubts about Watchtower teachings, they're not met with patience or understanding, but with immediate concern about their spiritual weakness. And what about when those children grow up and decide to leave? Now parents are instructed to severely limit or completely cut off contact with their own adult children just because they don't share the same faith. The article then says, quote, "Let your children know what steps you have taken to keep the family safe." End quote. Yet the organization's policies actively tear families apart and cause lasting psychological damage. How is that keeping families safe? It isn't. Now, the shunning policy directly contradicts numerous scriptures. Let's go through just a couple of. First, there's Jesus' example of associating with those deemed sinners by religious authorities, Matthew 9:10 through 13. Then, like I mentioned, there's the parable of the prodigal son, which shows unconditional parental love in Luke 15. Then there's Jesus' teachings about loving your enemies and not just your friends in Matthew chapter 5. Paul's instruction to admonish those who are disorderly, not cut them off completely in 2 Thessalonians 3:15, and the command to speak consolingly to the depressed souls in 1 Thessalonians 5:14. The organization cherry picks 1 Corinthians 5:11 through 13 to justify shunning, but it ignores what Paul was actually addressing: extreme cases of unrepentant immoral behavior, not sincere questioning, or simply choosing to leave a religion. I've witnessed firsthand what this shunning policy does to families. I've seen parents who haven't spoken to their children in decades, grandparents who have never met their grandchildren, siblings who don't know each other, elderly ones who die alone because their family remains faithful to the organization's policy, people who have developed severe depression, and some who have even taken their own lives due to the complete isolation caused by this evil policy, this unscriptural policy. And all this suffering is created by the same organization that publishes articles about protecting relationships. The shunning policy isn't really about keeping the congregation clean. That's what they claim, but that's not what it is. It's about control. It creates a powerful deterrent to leaving. If you leave, you lose everyone you love. This policy ensures high retention rates by making the cost of leaving unbearably high. It silences questioning by making examples of those who question. And it prevents current members from hearing legitimate concerns from former members. When they say protect your relationships, What Watchtower really means is protect your relationships with other witnesses. Any relationship that might threaten your complete loyalty to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is expendable. What makes this even more frustrating is how inconsistently the policy is applied. For instance, a man who molests a child might be disfellowshipped, but can be reinstated in a year or two. But someone who simply says, I no longer believe this is the truth, is shunned indefinitely. Someone who commits a sin but confesses might receive only private reproof, while someone who stops attending meetings without sinning at all is often treated far worse. The harshest treatment is reserved not for those who harm others, but for those who threaten the organization's authority by questioning it. What real relationship protection would look like is very different. If the organization truly cared about protecting relationships, you know what they would do? One, they would eliminate the shunning policy that tears families apart. Two, they would allow open, honest questioning without fear of punishment. Three, they would respect individual conscience and freedom of belief. Four, they would support family bonds even amid religious differences. And five, they would practice the unconditional love they only preach about. Jesus summarized true religion as loving God and loving your neighbor in Matthew 22. The organization's shunning policy violates both principles. It misrepresents God's love and destroys love between neighbors, friends, and even family members. For those still in the organization reading this article on protecting relationships, I encourage you to look at how Jesus actually treated people. He didn't shun sinners, he ate with them. He didn't cut off questioners, he patiently answered them. He didn't demand unquestioning loyalty to religious leaders, he condemned those who laid heavy burdens on other people. The most important relationships in your life with your children, parents, siblings, and closest friends should never be held hostage to maintain loyalty to a corporation. Real love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. 1 Corinthians 13:7. It doesn't end when someone changes their beliefs. The organization's article on supposedly protecting relationships during world turmoil represents the height of organizational hypocrisy. They promote family bonds while systematically destroying them. They quote scriptures about enduring friendship while mandating the opposite. If you're a current witness reading this, I ask you, does your concept of God's love truly match a policy that separates parents from children and siblings from each other? Would a loving God really want families destroyed over differences in belief? And if you're someone who's lost family to this policy, please know you are not alone. There are entire communities of former witnesses who understand exactly what you're going through. True relationships built on authentic love rather than conditional religious affiliation can survive any difference in belief. No truly loving relationship requires the threat of permanent severance to maintain it. Well, that's what I have to say about that matter. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it. As always, I appreciate your comments and your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.